Hi, what's going on? It's your boy. What's going on? I'm very human, and you're not. And today, I'm gonna be showing you how to deconstruct your club. The project I'm gonna go over today is my demo for the Fractured Toolkit by College Kid, an amazing producer and DJ out here in Denver, Colorado. Blessed to have the opportunity. Thank you for the pack. And every single sound that you hear in here, except for like just some hi-hats, was from this pack. So let's dive right in. First thing I normally do when I'm trying to make a deconstructed club is deconstruct the sounds. Thankfully, because that's already been done, I'm gonna just hop right in. Let's pull up the pack right here and let's take a look at what comes in it. Alright, here is the Fractured Toolkit. We got snares, we got perks, we got kicks, impulse responses, which is pretty freaking cool, glitches, basses, and ambient pads. Here's what I did with this pack. I had a really great time making this track. Let's dive right in. First things first, we're gonna start with this section because that's where I started when I was making this. Let's take a look at the drums here. I got 3 drum racks. This isn't always my method. Usually I use 1, but I just wanted to jump around, be able to do it quick. It was easier to just duplicate the track. Don't mind the rest of these samples. If we take a look in here, I'm not using them. I'm just using the fractured kick here and that melodic snare over there. And we zoom out a little bit, we can see that I'm also throwing in this metal snare. On this drum rack, I'm using the rumbly kick, and on this drum rack, I'm using the squelch kick. Those sound like this. And this. I truly love the clipping on all these. The next thing I like to do for my drums is pretty much nothing. Just clip them. That's it. That's all I do to my drums. Glue compressor too. I've got a lot of clippers. I'm sure you do as well. It's 2025. But my all-time favorite, Ableton glue compressor. Especially if you turn this range down right here, yeah, just as good, if not better, than the soft clipper and FL. I use this on my trap beats. I use this on my dubstep. Shit, I'd use this on my beard if I could. The next thing I'm going to take a look at here is my simple drum rack. Nothing too wild. I've got a couple of these percussion sounds from the pack. And then I layered that in with just some basically timekeeping hats. This is just so I can get a little bit of motion and rhythm in the background and a little bit of tonality in some of the percussion too. A little bit of motion, a little bit of dancing. You know, we deconstruct in the club. It's gotta have some dance to it. I used to not use drum rack. I actually used to just use the audio files, and I would just place those samples on audio tracks, you know, like kick and snare. And this summer I was put on to the that Virtual Riot sidechain method. Worth checking out. I think he has a whole long video on it, so I'm not gonna get too deep into this. Essentially, it's ring mod sidechain. I got a shaper box over here that is my audio shaper, and I can grab this drum rack information and have it on a blank MIDI track, route it over to that shaper box, and then track in and then I will send all the audio I want to sidechain to the drums, just track into this sidechain bus. From there, it gives me like one knob for volume for like the whole track except for drums, and I can have my drums at 0 or less, or I want to be cleaner, and not have to worry about constantly changing level and mixing them, trying to sidechain each of these with an individual compressor or gate, etc., etc. Alright, now let's get into the meat of this little drop we got. Over here, I'm summing it all, basically with a master chain. Sorry to say, there are no rules, especially if you're trying to deconstruct. This master chain is probably my favorite that I've made. It's essentially just saturation with a utility that I can turn down or up to be able to get the volume right. I don't want to turn the drive up, I want the drive to be set. I like 3 dB, that's safe for me. That's kind of, it's got a nice bulk to it. I also made sure to throw in a couple of, more global effects. This dynamic tube, super fun to be able to get that crunchy distortion at the turnaround of each phrase or creating fills. And then I use cabinet to kind of tame that just a bit, because if I were to just come in with a dynamic tube, no cabinet, shit, your ears wouldn't like that. I also have this wash. It's just a reverb, EQ, soothe, and then a grain delay. I don't think the grain delay is on for this one, but I normally use this wash knob to just create little transitions, like right before drops or from the drop into the next section. Sometimes at the beginning of songs too. All that I'm really saying is get creative. You don't have to use tools that... Let's just move on to the next thing. Alright. Now, the master channel that I have here has a little bit of volume automation, not much, and the tube is turned up. Now I'm crunching on the bass layer, or on the bass bus, so that way I can kind of get that distortion sound, that clipping sound, prior to all these other summing moments. If we just listen to this bass bus, we can hear kind of how it sounds in comparison to the whole project. I like this little Swiss Army meter Max for Live. It's really easy to use. It has a LUFS reader, and when I'm throwing my master channel all over the project, I can see just where we're at on each stage prior to the master chain itself. Prior to the main channel itself. Alright. You wanted sauce, I'm gonna deliver. Buffer override, free plugin. Don't tell anybody. Just kidding. Tell your mom, tell your sister, tell your brother. This is an amazing plugin. It actually overrides the buffer rate of your project. And I found that a little bit of experimentation depending on the track, but basically set your forced, what is that? So, sorry, my cat. Mess around with the forced buffer rate and find a tone that sounds good, but the real thing you're going to automate is this buffer divisor right here. As you can see, I have it kind of at the turnaround of each little phrase, sort of like a fill, and this plugin is amazing. It just glitches out the tone. It gives it those overtones, like kind of like beat repeat. And right there, I was just moving that force buffer size around just so you could see what that does and the difference there. I put this kind of all over the project itself too, because it's fun to get the different tones feeding as they go up and through the chain through each of the buses. Over here, this is not an impact, but alright, let's keep moving down the project. Next, this is not an impact. This was going to be an impact. I started with this tonal sample. I like the tonal sample, so I just tuned it with my ear based off of what the rest of the song was doing. And so I tuned it using my ear. You can use Ableton's tuner too. And it sounds like this. You can hear the buffer override going crazy. My first thing that I like to do on every sound design project is EQ. If you're not doing that, the first thing I like to do when it comes to sound designing one-shots is throw in a little bit of EQ. I like the high cut. You got a low cut. There's no way around it. Next, we got my official donk rack. I love this rack. It's just a frequency shifter, some delay, a little bit of reverb, secret LTT if you need it, disperser, which I know it's not Ableton native, but you can use roar, just so you know. I'm not using roar to disperse, but down here in the filters, you have a dispersion filter, which is just an all pass, and you get 3 bands of it. And then yeah, there's buffer override. I'm using roar, by the way, on this just to multi-band saturate. Oh, hi. My cat came to visit. This is my kitty. Say hi. Her name is Long Division. Alright, let's keep moving in the project. Up next are these super cool pads. These pads I got from the Ambient Pads pack, or Ambient Pads folder in the pack. And, you know, shit. I was making Deconstructed Club. I had to use the granulator. I got a little multi-band saturation with Saturn. You could use this, or you could use Roar for this. This was just in the rack already as I started. And with the granulator, one of my favorite things to do for pads, basses, really any sort of like deconstruction style sound is find one position that works and automate the grain size. It acts similar to buffer override, or at least sounds similar. Here's how it sounds on this layer. You can get those sort of extra tonal artifacts, and that's probably my favorite thing to do for pads or basses. I just have the same exact grain size automation on both of these. This one sounds like this. And all together with that drum rack, that sidechain, and the pads. And that's essentially all that's going on. I did have this texture. I tend to normally use textures too, but these sounds had so much grit going on that I just didn't need it. It was too cluttered. Let's keep going. Now we're getting into the real sauce. These basses here. Oh. Each of these was designed pretty similarly. This is kind of my go-to spectral maker. It's been my go-to for like 3 weeks now. It's in my template. I open it up. It has a blank Serum 2 and this sub-process whole chain. And all that is my favorite little sub right here. This is a Serum 2 sub with a little LFO modulated by another LFO. But the first LFO is modulating the coarse value. That gives it that kind of punchy, almost 808 like impact. And you can mess with that, you know, bring this down, up for little wubs or more of a donkey sound. And that sounds like this alone. The reason I do my sound design inside of an Ableton chain is because I had issues with tuning in my ear, and I'd spend too long getting lost in the sauce making sounds prior to even putting a sub on them. And I always like to have access to my sub. I don't want them to be kind of baked in inside of Serum. So with this, I can duplicate the track once I've sound designed, and then I can just turn off the Serum and have a sub layer, or vice versa, and I'm just the top layer. I didn't do that for these because it worked out, but, you know, workflow tips and tricks. Inside of these Serums, is where the real magic happens. I went through these basses right here, and I just started tossing them into this spectral oscillator that I have set up. This is also mapped over to, you know, the chorus with an LFO, because pitch modulation is the entirety of sound. That sounds like this. Each of these other sounds fairly similar. If we open this up, yep, short corroded. And then this one, I think, yep. So, 2 spectral layers, 2 oscillators, and that sounds like this. On each of these, I am modulating this pitch MIDI tool right here. And that's allowing me to be able to get the tones and be able to make it sound like I am writing more complex MIDI than I actually wrote. Altogether, this drop comes together pretty hard and sounds like this. So let's keep moving. In this little middle section, I threw a break. You know how to do it to them. All I got on here is just this EQ. Sometimes I'll use some multi-band saturation. I'd also recommend drum bus. You don't need it always. This break tends to just be behind the other drums. Another trick too, just because I like throwing out tricks, is grab that blue compressor. Smash it. I didn't do that for this because this was just kind of a background layer, but if you got a break and you really want it to be smashed and sound real loud, that's the trick. Alright. Now, this halftime section over here, this was fun. I took the MIDI that I had going on from this first section, then I got another layer. If we take a look at this sound design, not much different, just that stomp bass. A little bit of difference on that LFO for the pitch modulation, which I don't even think it's really being affected actually. Nope. But yeah, that sounds like this. Yeah, I did layer up 2 drum racks, and no, I didn't EQ them. I just let my master chain saturated do the work. And how could I forget? I threw in a couple of tags over here just because, you know, I like tags. We got the classic Otica. And
absolutely human.
That tag is me. That's just me right up in the microphone saying absolutely human. Have fun, be silly. Stop taking yourself so seriously. You're making Deconstructed Club. Yeah. That's my Fractured demo. Really not that complex. Majority of the sound comes from the clipping. Also the pack itself is just brilliant. Hopefully I didn't miss anything in this project, and if you have any questions, feel free to DM me. Yeah. Once again, I'm very human. I also go by Umbrella Hat. I've been making music for a long time now, and I'm not the best teacher. So if there's anything I could do better in these videos, please let me know down below in the comments. I hope to be trying to make a video like once a month. This is Subnet Cloud Party. I'm very human. Thank you for watching. Peace.